Well, we should go back one step. Just before that point, I thought, what can we do that's better and different? Skinner was such a great organ builder, and he, after all, lived within the golden age of organ building, which was the 1920s. Materials and manpower. Manpower was available, unlimited manpower, and materials were not expensive. So he could conceive and build organs that were larger and greater than anyone really had before. How could we possibly, down here in Orleans on Cape Cod, how could we do better than that? There had to be something, there wasn't anything new to invent, but there perhaps, I thought, was ways that we could extend the Skinner concept. How it occurred to me that we could do that, it wasn't a new idea by any means, was to basically do a surround sound organ. The concept was not new. In the 1930s, what you did on a Sunday afternoon, if you liked organ music, was to go to the First Church in Boston. The organist there, William E. Zoik, happened to be one of the vice presidents of the Skinner Organ Company. And the church happened to have a rather extraordinary instrument. Originally, it was two organs divided in the back balcony, but then First Church merged with another church that had just bought a big Skinner. So, of course, they brought the organ along and they put that in the two corners at the front of the church. And it was largely a square room, and in fact, they created quadraphonic sound about 85 years before we invented the word. And Zoik knew exactly how to exploit the instrument. Skinner built one of the largest consoles that they had ever built to control everything about it and put it in the back gallery. Zoik would sit there and he could make the sound go around in circles. When I was an apprentice, I talked to people who had been there at those programs. They said, well, if you wanted to get a seat at all, you had to be there. The program started at 3, you had to be there at 2. If you wanted to get a good seat, you had to get there at 1. So you brought the Sunday paper and you brought lunch, and everybody sat there and chatted and talked and ate lunch and read the paper until it was time for the music to begin. And I, in my innocence, said, well, where were the good seats? And they smiled and said, in the middle. Can you imagine quadraphonic sound in 1935? It was marvelous. It was splendid. It was the only place in the city of Boston, and probably in hardly any church in America, that you could hear that kind of thing. People who were telling me about it said when William Zoik played the Ride of the Valkyries, the horses started moving around the room clockwise. And as the piece built up and built up louder and louder, all of a sudden, they would grind to a halt in one corner and reverse directions. He said it reduced us to emotional blobs. So from there, where could you go? And of course, the answer was all the way down the side of the church on both sides. Not just quadraphonic in the corners, but not just stereo from the corners, but quadraphonic blossoming into surround sound. We had no idea how it would take place. We had no idea at first how the divisions would be arranged or how anybody could possibly make the organ do that. But we figured, well, what with computers and all these days, surely we'll be able to figure out the mechanics of the situation. And that's what we hope we've done.